All right. Hello, everybody. Today is March 17, 2022, and it is a beautiful sunshine coming in my windows. And I opened up the windows to get the air flowing through the house because I feel like it was stuffy from the winter. Man, it feels so wonderful. I am Michelle Renee Israel.
Hey, Michelle.
Hello,
Hey,
Aquila.
hey, everybody. I'm Aquila, and we are your vintage, aged, experienced, and insightful as academicians who have been here not with just our generation or our time here on this side of the waters, but we've been academicians from the beginning of time.
Yes.
So we are coming to you all in that mindset that as academicians, which we all are or have the potential to be, we just want to talk freely about just life and how it has impacted us. And Michelle?
Before we get into our discussion, can we say that we are missing an arm and a leg? We are missing April Weaver and
Yeah.
Jamaica Korean.
Yeah.
We are moving on anyway. They're dealing with some health issues and they just living life in peace and developing themselves, and we're just gonna leave them alone and move on anyway. But we wish them well.
Okay, all is good.
All is well. I love you, April. I love you, Jamila.
Yeah. So we just want to have a talk, and let's sit down and talk about it. Kind of conversation today.
Yeah.
And out of all the subjects, what is the most profound is the school to prison pipeline.
Yes, I am putting our website in the comments. If anybody wants to go look at what we do.
We are really a team of 4 who between us perhaps have well over 100 years of experience in the educational field, teaching, administrative, community. And so we are sharing our experiences and what we know to be so as academicians, as educators, as mothers, and as part of the village.
And can I say, as servants of God, I can never do that now.
Yeah. So let's just talk about it. What do we feel about the school, about this pipeline, Michelle?
Well, you know, it's a subject that it's a sore thumb and nobody wants to talk about it. I worked with a couple of alternative high schools. I was a leader in 8 or 9 alternative high schools, 8 at the same time. And when I first started in that system, you know, when you think of alternative high schools, you think of young people that, you know, can't be helped, are in trouble, cause trouble, are violent, you know, and you think of all those negative things.
Right.
And honestly, when I got that first job in that first alternative high school, and I got the job as principal or director of the school, I was afraid because I was used to working at, you know, little old Israel Academy, where the young people were children who I saw at church and, you know, at Bible class, and I saw in the community, and I could talk to their parents, and they knew me as just as Sister Amira or Ima Amira. So it was like a family. So those children in the alternative school, I was afraid of them when I first got that job. And I almost didn't take the job because I was afraid of them. But you know me, I like a challenge. and I know how to fake it till I make it. So they didn't know I was afraid. And when I got in there and I started operations, and the first thing I did was I made sure that I chose the staff that I worked, many of the staff that I worked with, I went to church with every Sabbath, and I worked with at the Israel Academy. So I surrounded myself by strong people that I know could help me pull that job off of making an impact on those children. And what we learned, and I'm saying we because I didn't do it by myself, what we learned is those children that they call alternative schools, in those alternative schools who they claim are worthless and can't be helped, and they are just warehousing them so that they can age out. And you know it's a warehouse because a regular public school might get maybe approximately 8,000 something from the state and the federal government per student. Well, in the alternative high schools, they only get about 5 or 55. That right there tells you that they are warehousing them. And we know that poverty breeds problems.
Yes.
It just breeds just all kind of social ills, and it all stems from poverty. So why would you put tons of already, and I think we had our maximum was maybe 275 students on one floor of an old church school. Why would you take that many troubled young people
Put them in the
and
same
put them in the same
environment.
place, but give the administration less money to function? You need more money. So that told me first that it was a warehouse. So because of the team that I selected, we didn't look at it as a warehouse. We worked really hard to really service those young people. And what I found was, I'm getting to my point. My point is, what we discovered was they're just children, and they want the same thing that all other children want. They want to be loved. They want to be taught. They want to learn.
Guided.
They want
direction.
guided and directed, and they want to eat well. They want the same thing. They want you to smile at them, and they want you to say, yes, well done. They want to see a smiling face on their paper. So yeah, that's what I discovered. And when it took a couple of months for us to get in the mode of having them to trust us, but we did it. And I mean, I really enjoyed that. That was a really, really good time in my career where I can really make a difference. Really make a difference.
So when we get back to, there's a moral to the story, y'all. You know, and the moral to the story, I think that Michelle is saying in a nutshell, is that your environment breeds certain outcomes. So if you create certain environments, you're going to get those desired outcomes. So the prison to the pipeline, where does it start? What is it? Where does it begin? And we as academicians, experienced in that field of education, we're saying that in order to combat that train of thought, is that we have to start preschool.
Yeah, it starts early. We see it. Everybody knows. All the research says that it begins in 3rd grade, but that's not where it begins. It's seen there. We see it there, recognize it there, but it begins before 3rd grade.
It begins way before that. And so we can say that it begins when we start preschooling our children, but no, you know, it takes shape and form and intent by the time we put them into preschool
Absolutely.
learning this thing. But our commitment and our obligation is before we even allow our babies out into say a preschool mode. Okay, so
Absolutely.
we've got to go back into the homes.
And right now I teach at a community college, and sometimes we have young people, male and female, in the age group of 17 to maybe 26 or so. They just disappear in the middle of the semester. And I've learned to recognize that when they disappear like that with no contact, they don't answer phones, email, etc. It's because they've been arrested. And it's probably not the first time they've been arrested, because whenever they were stopped for whatever they were stopped for, and they find out that they've already been in the system, immediately they scoop them up.
Yeah.
So, at the stage where I teach now, I can be effective as I can, but I think I could be more effective if I went back to third grade and before, and worked with students at that level to help combat them from being even wrapped up in the school to prison pipeline.
And I think in order to think out of that framework, or out of that mindset, we've got to be able to craft a visual on what that actually looks like. It is so obscure that you would miss it.
You would miss it.
So the simplicity of it is what we miss. So it becomes complex because we can't put it down into simple forms. But that's all it is, is that where at that point where you lose your child, because if your child ain't for you, then your child is against you. So with this prison pipeline, if our children are being I think directed in that mode, what does that look like for me as a parent, for me as even an educator? Because if the schools is that prison to pipeline track, then who am I as an educator? And am I contributing to that? What does that actually look like?
And I think we should understand that I believe, and I could be wrong because of course I don't know everything, but I truly believe that at this point, we do not need to look at the system, the school system, to help to combat and repair this school to prison pipeline. It needs to be other stakeholders, starting with parents. This thing begins at home. Education begins at home. Parents are a child's first teacher.
First respondent.
Yes, they're the first respondents. And then everybody who surrounds that child are also stakeholders. It starts right there. And then the church, that's an extension. A neighbor is an extension. The businesses in the area where that child lives, those are extensions. So we're not saying that we want to fix the school system, because in my opinion, the school system is what it is, and I can't fix it.
Right. And remember, we're like I say, we're educators who have been in the system for well over 20, 30 years, retired. Michelle, she's still grinding. She's
retiring next year. Yes. And I'm telling you, when I worked for my people, I was at my happiest and I loved it. So when I retire, I'm not going to sit down. However, I may not work every day, but I am going to work in my community. I'm going to find some children that need assistance. I'm going to find adults who work with these young people, and I'm going to work to empower them. My goal is to empower those who empower our youth.
Yes, and that's what we do ideally. We PD. We have always PD'd teachers and colleagues, and now we're seeing that we have to go back to the
Yeah.
infancy stage and start there and start
Mhm.
PDing, dealing with professional development
Yeah.
in the preschool arenas, because that's where it starts. That's where
Yeah.
it has to begin. So
Yeah.
that
I'm excited
crazy
about that.
pipeline, it doesn't even exist. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because we understand what we're looking at, and we're understanding how to craft the tools that we will need to combat that.
Hmm.
But it's in the fiber of this society. It is nothing new. It has been here. It changes faces, but that prison to pipeline concept has been here for us in this land since we arrived.
Yes.
So we're saying that let's take back what is ours, and that is our right to protect our children and to give them the best that we have to give as parents, as academicians, as invested community people. Come on, y'all, let's get on board and let's
Hmm.
start talking about and creating the buzzwords and creating another language so that we can dismantle this whole educational system, because it has not necessarily worked. So let's remove the band-aids, and it begins where? In the homes, y'all.
In the home.
Homes. Yes.
Yes.
So
If you notice, I just changed the background. I wanted to plug our book along with our colleagues, April Weaver, our colleagues and sisters. We have a sisterhood. April Weaver and Jamila Kareem, we wrote and published a book called Trust Classroom Management, Time to Rebuild Understanding Between Students and Teachers. What do you want to say about that?
What I'd like to say is that there has been a lot of reform, and there's a lot of studies and research that's out there. And with all of that, still, we have not created the silver bullet to turn this whole thing around as it pertains to the education of our children. And so that's why and we're teachers. All of us here are educators. All of us here have gone through this school of thought. And so we have degrees. We can justify in terms of who we are as researchers, as well as scholars. So what we're saying here, that as mothers and as a part of the community, we have an obligation to give what we have learned, to give back to
Mm-hmm.
the community, and that's what we're doing. So
Yeah.
now we know that the buck doesn't start with the teacher. The buck doesn't start with the secondary social unit. The buck stops and begins with the primary unit. So we've got to
Yes.
go back into the homes, and we have
Yes.
got to create the vision that we want for our children, craft it, develop it,
Yes.
and then when we move them into these secondary social units, we can give them a blueprint of what our expectations are of them in the raising of our children.
And the blueprint is this. What we've done is we've taken our original publication and we have used it to craft a couple of manuals, one for early childhood administrators. The second that we developed was early childhood teachers. And then the third manual that we wrote is for parents of early childhood children from birth to third grade. So we want to take that on the road now. We want to offer that training online and in person, face to face, to anybody who works to empower our young people in early childhood development from
Yeah.
third grade back. Now, we're not saying that we are abandoning all the other high school, alternative high school, um, community college, elementary school children that we've tapped into, but we still want to help with those age groups, but we want to have our focus on early childhood because that's where we first see the school to prison pipeline uplift its ugly head, and we feel that we will be able to help to combat that ugly thing from third grade back.
Yes, yes. And so we're saying that rather than to keep dealing with the symptoms, let's address the cause.
Exactly.
And everything has a beginning. Everything begins with a seed and with a thought.
Yes.
So we're petitioning parents, mothers, fathers, guardians. Let us reclaim our children from the womb. Let
See,
us so that,
yes,
back in the day, you couldn't start school unless your child knew how to do what? Tie their shoes, know their name. And so all of that has been, we've maybe perhaps have given away our autonomy.
autonomy. We've given away our own authority as
Education of our
parents.
children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's is who we are. We're advocates of that thought, that school of thought, because we know that it is a deterrent from that school to prison pipeline phenomena.
All right. So with that, we are wrapping this up. We are going to have a discussion every Thursday morning. You are welcome to join us in our discussion. We will post a link to the Zoom. You can join us in Zoom, or you can just watch us on Facebook Live, and the recordings will be available on YouTube afterwards. You please join in. We want to talk to you. We want to hear from you. We want to know, how can we help you empower the young people that you're working with, whether you are a parent, whether you're an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, an administrator, a neighbor, a business who's interested in working with young people, a church who has a program for our youth. We want to hear your voices. We don't want to lecture. We want to listen. You're welcome to come in and let us hear you every Thursday morning.
And we'll leave you with, it takes the village, y'all.
It takes a village.
It takes us all, to raise our children. It's going to take all of us.
And guess what? You are a part of the village.